We are ready to begin reading again. Please make sure you've got your book and a nice comfy spot. Today our focus is Chapter 7 and it begins on page 85. Please pause the video if you are not ready. Chapter 7, The Vanishing Coin Trick. It was a book. Somehow, Mr. Zerlin had known that Mike wanted a book. Mike didn't know how Mr. Zerlin knew or where he had gone, but this book, the Book of Secrets, was much better than anything he'd seen in the library. It had silver lettering on the cover, like tinfoil, and yellowed pages that made it look like many magicians had read the book before Mike. There were more tricks inside than Mike had ever dreamed of. He could do a different trick in the cafeteria every day if he wanted. He thought about homework for about 2 seconds. How would Nora know the whole 4th grade was doing a project, he wondered. It wasn't like the teachers would tell her, would they? She didn't know what she was talking about. With that worry off his mind, Mike turned on his desk light and opened the Book of Secrets. It began with a quote from someone named Goethe. Magic is believing in yourself. If you can do that, you can make anything happen. Mike smiled. He had a good feeling about this. Turning the page, he found the vanishing coin trick. So that answered his first question. Coins or cards? Cards could wait for the next time. Down in the kitchen, his dad was clattering around. His mom came home and unloaded the dishwasher. Mike could hear his parents talking about their days, and then the silence of them both checking their messages. But he didn't really take any of it in. He was too busy learning how to make a coin disappear. The trick called for a double-sided tape, which Mike just happened to have in his desk. He put both of his hands face up, and with a tiny piece of tape, stuck a quarter right in the middle of his middle finger. In the mirror, Mike showed both hands. It looked like he was holding the coin. The tape was all rolled up so no one could see it was actually stuck. Then he clasped his hands together to make it look like he was dropping the coin from one hand to the other. He even closed the left hand to make it seem like he'd caught it. Really, though, he still had the coin stuck to the middle finger of his right hand. He put that hand in his pocket and scraped the coin off quickly. His left hand was still clenched as if he was holding something. With this magic dust, I'll make that coin disappear, Mike told his pretend audience. The right hand came out of his pocket now and sprinkled imaginary magic dust over the left. Time to try out another magic word. Shazam, Mike said, as he opened his left hand dramatically. There was nothing there, of course. The coin was still safe in his pocket. He spread open his fingers and moved them around to make it clear he wasn't hiding anything. This was the point where people would start to applaud, Mike thought. Tomorrow, he would be a star again. But he had to make sure the trick was perfect, and Jackson would be watching so he couldn't slip up. Mike lined up some action figures in front of the mirror so he could practice making eye contact. He tried to make it look natural when he was holding the coin at the start of the trick. Would people notice when he was scraping off the coin in his pocket? Maybe it would be better to talk during that part, he thought. Then people could concentrate on what he was saying, not what he was doing. Suddenly his mom's voice came up the stairs. Are you okay, Mike? She asked. I've already called you twice. It's dinner time. Mike quickly unstuck the coin from his hand and opened his door. Just working hard, he said. Lost track of time. She didn't need to know what he was working on. Not yet. And you'll get an opportunity to see the vanishing coin trick, but keep going, and now we're on page 94. The next morning, Mike found a bunch of coins and slipped them into the front pocket of his backpack, along with several tiny knots of double-sided tape. Couldn't hurt to have some extras, he thought, in case something went wrong. And actually, everything went wrong before he even attempted the trick. First, Mrs. Canfield collected homework from her class. Notes for your book projects, she told the kids. I'll look them over to make sure you're off to a good start. Mike watched as kids handed in stacks of index cards held together with rubber bands. Mrs. Canfield met his eye. Yours too, Mike, she said. Oh, I left them at home, he lied. Can I bring them in tomorrow? Mrs. Canfield sighed. First thing in the morning, she said. Mike wasn't sure how he was going to pull this off. Could he do a report on the Book of Secrets? He was too embarrassed to ask, and too distracted by thinking about his trick. Mr. Malone, the math guy, arrived just before lunch. Turned out Mike had to take a test during his lunch period instead of going downstairs with everybody else. "Just to see where you are right now," Mr. Malone said, "so we know where to start our work together." Where am I? Mike thought bitterly. I'm right here, hungry for my sandwich. And hungry, he had to admit, for some of that feeling he'd had yesterday. By the time recess rolled around, Mike was mad. Maybe that's why he climbed over the playground fence to get the paper airplane he'd thrown over. Maybe that's why he ignored the teacher on duty calling him back. Maybe that's why he ended up in Miss Scott's office again. The second time in 3 days. There'd be no recess for him tomorrow. Nora came over after school. By some miracle, neither of them had homework. But it took them a while to find something to do. Finally, she wandered into his garage and came out with a soccer ball. "Want to play?" she asked. Mike set up the goal and tried to shoot against her, but she was quick. Is there anything she can't do? He wondered. As he missed another shot, Jackson came by on his bike. His eyes lit up when he saw them. Yesterday they'd been at Nora's, today they were at Mike's. Mike could tell Jackson had figured it out. He spent every afternoon with Nora Flynn. "Too bad you can't play soccer with the boys this year," Jackson laughed. "But at least you can play with the girls. They're more your speed anyway." "Oh yeah?" Mike said indignantly. "Bet you can't score against Nora." Jackson grinned. "What's it worth to you?" "A quarter." He flung his bike down on Mike's lawn. Jackson dribbled the ball around the yard. On his first shot, Nora caught the ball. He whistled. "Not bad," Jackson said. He moved the ball back toward the street and took his time with it. He kicked it in the air and headed it just to show off. And then, when Mike had started to think he wouldn't bother shooting again, he got the ball past Nora's outstretched hands. "Score!" yelled Jackson triumphantly, pumping his fist in the air. "Time to pay up, big guy," he said to Mike. Mike's backpack was on the front stairs. He had to have a quarter in there with all his coins. He found one pretty quickly, but he also found his scraps of tape, which gave him an idea. He knew how to make up for his rough day. He walked back to Jackson and gave him the quarter. "Here you go," Mike told him. "Fair and square." Jackson took it and headed for his bike. "Should have bet at least $1, he muttered. "Hey, can I show you something?" Mike said. "Can I see that quarter for a second?" In his hand, he'd hidden a piece of tape. Jackson frowned. "I guess." Slowly, he gave it back to Mike. Mike stretched his hands out and showed Jackson his quarter, which was now invisibly taped to his finger. "Here's your quarter, right?" he asked. "Obviously," said Jackson. Mike clasped his hands as he'd practiced in the mirror to make it look like he'd moved the coin, but it was really still in the same hand, which he put in his pocket. "It's right here," Mike assured Jackson. He looked at his left hand, which was now in a fist. "But let's see what happens when I sprinkle a little magic dust over it, okay?" He pretended to get the magic dust out of his pocket with his right hand. Then he sprinkled the dust over his fist. He decided on a magic word Jackson was sure to know. Abracadabra! When he opened his fist, the coin was gone. All right, that ends Chapter 7. See you soon for Chapter 8.